This year, okay, great. So our next event will be March 27th. I think the topic will be mostly mobile payments. I was hoping to get to talk about Bitcoin as well, but I don't think it's a good idea anymore. Anybody owns Bitcoins?
Oh, my salary is on Bitcoin.
Oh, really? Do you have Bitcoins?
Yeah, somewhere in some computer.
Okay. Maybe I think we'll forget Bitcoin until they have figured out what to do next. April event is actually the one that I'm looking forward to. I just heard a new term yesterday, presence analytics. So we're going to have some speakers about presence analytics, which is where are the people, what are they doing inside stores and amusement parks and so on. So I'm going to invite a few innovative startups who are doing presence analytics. So let's get started. I'm going to hand over the mic to Katrina and let's get started.
Okay, so first we have Adam Helway. He is the founder and CEO. Can you hear me?
Sorry? Mic.
Hello? Is that okay? Okay, so this is Adam Helway. He's the founder and CEO of Secret Sushi Creative. It's a strategic design, digital, and social media marketing agency. He's got a team of creative chefs who are dedicated to helping businesses grow. Thank you for being here. He's got a robust client list, including Broadcom, Stanford Federal Credit Union, the Thomas Keller Restaurant Group, TEDx San Jose. And next is Jason Miller from LinkedIn. He's the Senior Content Marketing Manager, where he leads the content marketing and social efforts for LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. He is a contributing author at the Top Marketing Blogs, and also is the author of several award-winning ebooks, including this one.
They haven't really won any awards, I just put that.
The Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to LinkedIn.
Did you get a copy of that autographed by you?
He does have a few copies up here, so you're gonna have to, fight him for it. And last but not least is Satya Krishna Swamy. He's the founder and CEO of Next Principles, an award-winning. Everybody's an award winner here.
Not me yet.
An award-winning social lead management solution provider. He's an experienced enterprise software professional, entrepreneur, and closet geek. Put that in there. His customers are also amazing. They include some of the world's most innovative companies, including EMC, and two of the world's top 10 pharmaceutical companies. And before that, he spent almost 15 years at SAP in a variety of roles. So thank you, gentlemen. You guys are amazing. It's becoming clear that social media is an essential part of doing business today. So maybe we could start with Jason, because LinkedIn has 277 million members now in over 200 countries. So
That's
maybe,
correct, yes.
yeah. So maybe you could talk about what enterprises are doing today as far as social media.
Check. Oh, that thing's live. So I will tell you this. I was at Marketo leading content and social there for a couple of years before I came over to LinkedIn. And I can tell you that I work specifically on the marketing solutions. Anyway, much better. So anyway, I focus specifically on LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, which is, there's three different divisions of LinkedIn. There's LinkedIn Talent Solutions, which is the main product that a lot of people know us for. Then there's LinkedIn Sales Solutions, which is the sales navigator, which helps enterprise sales companies. It helps anybody, from small businesses up to enterprise, just navigate your sales better, get better insights around your customers and prospects, etc. I work specifically on the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions team, which I call the new kid on the block, because a lot of people aren't aware of the functionality or the opportunities for marketers, specifically content marketers on LinkedIn. So they brought me over to tell that story and kind of make some noise around the opportunity for marketers on LinkedIn. But I mean, from the enterprise standpoint, I kind of go from Marketo was more mid-market, and we went into enterprise stuff. But what was the question? Sorry.
What are enterprises doing today with social media?
I think enterprises, I mean, again, there's a quote from David Bowie that I always use, right? It's called, the only art I'll ever steal, the only art I'll ever study is the ones I can steal from, right? And what that means is basically, the enterprise, they have all the budgets, they have all the money, so they're get social, they have the budgets for the content, they have the head count for these, enormous campaigns. Red Bull, it comes to mind whenever we think who feels that it's social, right? But the idea for me is to what can the rest of us kind of steal from that and put our own twist on. So I think in this day and age, I think 2012 was the year of social, 2013 was the year of content, and 2014, especially for the enterprise, because they're doing it really well so far, and the middle accounts, it's where they come together as part of a full integrated marketing strategy, right? And I also think that the enterprise, they've figured out that if you do want to be successful in this, in social and content, they kind of play hand in hand, we all hopefully know that, you have to have dedicated headcount, you have to have a budget in place, and you have to pay to play now. Social is in that place where I like to say organic is good and paid is better, right? It used to be the other way around, but now paid is better because you can target with it more specifically, and you kind of have to put some paid behind it, get past your initial reach. I call it, like, if you're only doing inbound marketing, it's like hanging out with it's like hanging out with the same group of kids from high school your entire life, right? And I hated high school, so I don't want to do that. I want to break through to that second degree friends of friends connections, the second degree connections outside of my initial reach. And how do you do that? You do that with paid. So what's enterprise doing well? They're doing paid. They're doing content very well. They're fueling their social with content, and they're making it part of this full integrated marketing strategy. So it's not enough, you don't just run a social campaign anymore, you make all of your campaigns social. So I think that's probably one of my time on it.
Adam.
Now I'm trying to remember what the question was again as well. Regarding the enterprise. So I wouldn't say that the work that we've done in social media has been with the enterprise as much as the sort of small and medium-sized businesses. And I would agree with Jason. Had an interesting conversation directly with Twitter recently. We've been moving and doing more advertising on Twitter. People often think about what they've been doing. Small businesses and medium-sized businesses think a lot about the money they put into pay-per-click advertising on Google, and they think about Facebook, but they're not paying attention now to a lot of the new advertising offerings that are coming out both in LinkedIn, on Twitter, and a lot of other places are starting to sort of creep in, like Pinterest and Instagram. But in talking with them, I mean, they essentially said exactly the same thing as Jason said, where they have a lot of tools available for free. And I was a little surprised to find out a couple of the things like lead generation cards, which is essentially a tool to allow you to have a tweet that has a one-click directly within that tweet to capture somebody's name and email information so they can opt into an email or to an offer or to an asset. Same thing you might do on your website with an actual form. You can do that directly with a lead generation tweet, lead generation card as they call it. And my impression was they were charging for that. And they said, no, we're not charging for it. Use it as much as you want. But if you're going to pay, which you should be doing that in order to do, just like Jason said, if you're just going to send lead generation cards out to your followers, you're doing that to your existing audience. And you're sort of, again, hanging out with that same group of folks. But if you want to break through to extend out the reach of that and target folks beyond that group and expand who that initial audience is, what do? You pay in order to do that. So I think pay is a good amplification tool and a good extension of what you're doing organically. What are the folks doing right? I think if you look, there's a couple folks here and there that are being very creative. I think there's there's too many folks who are using whatever the tools are straight out of the box and they're expecting results, rather than actually putting a little bit of creativity behind it and finding creative ways either to use the tools or to attract customers with something that sort of breaks through the noise of every single other person. Also trying to publish a link to some cat video or some meme or something like that online. They're actually creatively trying to find ways to grab folks' attention by spending a little time and effort developing something that folks would find sort of valuable, entertaining, shocking, funny, but what I call it is, something that makes them feel better, faster, stronger, and smarter for stuff that they care about.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, Satya, it's your turn. what has worked for you and when it comes to social media marketing? And maybe you can give us some practical tools that they can go and do next week.
We still have Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Okay. I want to sort of extrapolate on what Jason and Adam said and answer this question. So I consider myself a boring old enterprise software guy. So while I agree with many of the things that Jason and Adam have talked about, I also hope that 2014 is the year of enlightenment, because we've had the pleasure of working with a variety of companies across, right from some of the largest enterprises in the world to startups. I think one of the key things that's happened is that indeed they're doing a lot of creative, lots of these companies are doing creative stuff, interesting stuff, and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, most of the organizations are still looking at social as a silo. And increasingly, the whole point about integrated marketing processes and so on that Jason talked about is starting to come in place. But until very recently, when we used to talk to companies about the need to integrate social into sort of the rest of the customer-centric processes, I would be looked at as if I landed from Mars, right? So people who, I'm a young or not so young, but I'm a hip, savvy digital guy. Why are you talking to me about boring things like CRM and marketing automation, right? But that is changing now because increasingly, especially at the enterprise level, these guys have been investing resources and time and money over the last 3, 5, 7 years. Now the tough questions are getting to start get asked within the organizations. Okay, so we've been investing for the last 5 years. What are we really getting, right? And that's where hopefully the hand-waving around what I call vanity metrics, right? The followers and the likes and so on, is going to slowly stop getting as much importance as it has until now. And the focus is more towards what the real business value of social is. And ultimately, people have to start answering that question, okay, what is the real value? Now, there is this cliche around ROI of social, we won't get into that today, otherwise we'll be here till midnight. But the point is, these companies need to start understanding really how and when does social really contribute to their top line and or bottom line. So to come back to your question, I think it's really about the fact that the more forward-looking companies are beginning to understand this and start to implement processes first, and then the technology. Processes, people, and then technology. Because one of the other mistakes, just like with other parts of enterprise software like CRM in the past and so on, what I've also seen over the last 5 to 7 years is most of the companies used to jump into making tools decisions first, even regarding social, right? And that's pretty much the last thing, and I am a vendor, right? I would love for everyone to buy tools first. But frankly, that's the last thing they should be doing, because ultimately what happens is they turn around and blame the tool because they have no clear idea of what the strategy is, what the processes are, the people needed to support it, and so on and so forth. And the easiest thing for them to turn around and say is, well, the tools don't work, right? And that's something that is also that the more forward-thinking companies are beginning to change. So the bottom line to all this, I guess, is that social maturity is a very relative term today, right? There isn't really a socially mature organization that we really see out there. There are various stages of advancement, but I think we are still in the very early days as far as truly understanding what social is concerned.
Well then, thank you. Okay. Yes, no trouble. So everybody keeps asking me, should my company have a presence on all the social media networks? Like, how do you answer that question?
So the interesting thing is I was reading through the questions a little, bit earlier today, and I was thinking, I wonder if she'll ask me that specific question. And my answer to again, should I be on? Say it one more time.
Repeat the question.
Sure. Should my company have a presence on all of the popular social media networks?
No. I mean, that's really it. My answer is plain and simple. It's no. There's actually a video that's on YouTube. Somebody at the end of a speaking engagement that I had asked something very similar, and somebody captured sort of my response. And there always feels like a lot of pressure because a lot of these solutions are initially free to sign up. So therefore, hey, what's there to lose? Go ahead and sign up. No, do not sign up for every single thing. Sign up for those things if you have time and intend to test them out, to push and test your creative metal in there and see if it's something that you guys can play around with. It'll keep you ahead of the curve a little bit if you can sort of experiment. But you do not have to be on every single channel that's out there. you need to be on the channels that matter, and that not necessarily matter as much to you. The ones that matter to you should be the ones that matter first and foremost to your customers. It's where are they finding information, where are they interacting, where are they having the discussions, those sorts of things. And then I always look at those networks and find out, well, how easy is it for somebody else, for instance, to jump into those networks themselves, one of your customers. You may have a lot of time to test and play with this and have some social savvy folks or technically savvy folks available to learn the tool, but your audience, who's going about their day doing all kinds of other things and don't have time, it may feel really big and hot because everybody in the Silicon Valley is talking about it, but it may not actually be anything that they really care about. And so you want to invest time in those things that your customers, where they spend the most time, the things that are going to help you communicate, a value essentially to those folks, rather than whatever happens to be the cool hot thing.
Jason, how often should we post new content on our social media networks, and how do we convert those followers into customers?
I'll have Adam's
question.
Better you got it than I.
I mean, again, how often should we be posting? I don't know. I mean, it depends. It depends on, right now we're in this wave of content, right? And there's a bunch of awful content out there. We all know that. Google
Hummingbird was supposed to
take care of that for us. But at the end of the day, I'd say less. Don't create more content. We need more relevant content, right? So they used to tell you to post every day to your blog. Blog is the original social media channel. I love the blog. Blog is the mothership. Blog is the social media web that ties the room together. One of my favorite classes. But the idea is, don't post unless you have something to say, and don't force it. And
Yeah, I mean, I write every single morning just because I have something to say. I mean, I write a post every morning,
like 20 minutes, right? I like the
Seth Godin, I call it the Seth Godin 500-word punch to the face.
face blog. It's
One thought, one idea. That's what a blog's supposed to be. We're all writing SEO or models.com blog posts. We're going to be, novelists in 2 weeks flat.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
again,
It's simple. Like,
don't create content just to create content. Create content if there's a need for it. More relevant content. Figure out what your audience wants to. It's not that difficult. You just have to listen a little bit. Go chat with some people. If you have a problem and you solve it, write a blog post about it. I did that for 2 years at Marketo. That's how we grew the whole blog. And then after 17 blog posts, we take that and turn it into an ebook, right? And then we take that ebook and we reverse engineer it into a webinar and SlideShare decks, into infographics, and all the infographics not dead, by the way. It's a silly thing to say. Poorly done infographics have always been dead. Don't get me started on this visual content thing. But again, I love infographics. Poorly done infographics will always be dead. An infographic is done with a purpose, with a good visual design, to support a PR campaign, to announce a product, to simplify an idea. Those will always be popular. But anyway, so how often you should post? You should do a mix. There's a thing. Excuse me. There's a thing that in order.
I borrowed this from. I stole it like an artist, right?
I borrowed it from HubSpot. We just did an infographic around. It's called the
Blogging food groups. Anybody ever heard of this before? The blogging food groups.
Is it okay if he doesn't use the mic?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I could talk to you about it.
This one
Yeah.
just gets turned down. This one was working awesome, but just was really
This
loud.
one, can we-
Test, test. Oh, if that could just be turned down.
Yeah, we turn this one down a little bit.
No, but there we go. This one, you need to turn it down. Turn it down. Just turn it down. You're gonna get feedback.
There we go. Let's get this thing back here. How's that? Check.
Is that okay?
So anyway, you should think about how you should set, this is how I think about it, right? How much should you be posting? How much content do you have? How much content can you create? How much content are you capable of posting to your social channels? So once you set your foundation, I'd say put a foundation everywhere and then chip away what's not working and then focus on it 3 to 5 times a day, I think is the absolute max. But how do you repurpose your content you have and put it into these content hubs, if you will? Right, on LinkedIn, there's 3 content hubs. There's groups, there's LinkedIn company pages, and there's SlideShare.
So how do we fuel that? Well, we use a thing called the blogging food groups, and I stole this from HostSpot. There was a blog post about this in 2009, man, and there's one blog post about this brilliant idea. This is the smartest thing I think I've ever heard in my entire life. And so I repurposed it and turned it into my own idea. Give full credit where it's due. And basically what the blogging food groups is it's a way of thinking about dividing up your content to fuel your social channels, right? So you have to have a strategy in place to mix up your content. So why not base it on something fun like the food groups? So a Monday post would be something we call a Raisin Bran post, which is something that's very easy to dish out. It's 5 tips for that, how to do this, very quick post, right? Tuesday would be spinach. A spinach post is something a little bit more thought-provoking, right? It's good for you even though it's difficult to chew. That's kind of the analogy. And then Wednesday, we would do the roast. Wednesday would be this 1,500-word blog post, or maybe some research, or something really deep and heavy, something you would save and come back to and spend a lot of time with, maybe send to your Kindle or whatever. Thursday would be Tabasco, where you start a little fire, where you call somebody, where you take a very strong point of view. I mean, that's always fun. There's a guy named Derek Halpern, this guy's a genius. He actually calls people out that have two opposing opinions, and then he emails them. So he writes a blog, calls them out, and then he emails them and says, hey, by the way, so-and-so said this about your standpoint, and then he goes, by the way, someone said, and all of a sudden they come back to his blog, and that was me, sorry. They come back to his blog, and there's a little war going on. He's got 150 comments. He's like, I'm just a moderator, man, but he's getting all the traffic. It's crazy. And then Friday, I'll edit this, not to take up too much time. Friday post is what we call chocolate cake. Chocolate cake post, we were talking about this. It's funny. Chocolate cake is just something fun, right? I wrote a blog post. I was coming back from Vegas to see Guns N' Roses. Like my entire life was like my wedding day and then Guns N' Roses in Vegas was the two best things that ever happened to me. And so I was on the plane a little bit hungover, and I said, man, I'm so inspired by Guns N' Roses. So I wrote a blog post called 5 content marketing tips from Guns N' Roses. And I swear to God, this really happened, that Guns N' Roses retweeted my blog post from Marketo and said, sure as hell didn't see this coming. And I'm like, this is amazing, right? What does it have to do? What did it do for Marketo? Absolutely nothing. But it's a pretty good story. But the idea is to, it's a fun Friday post, have fun with it, do something like that. It's the chocolate cake, goes into the weekend. Anyway, that's, I don't know if I went overboard there, but again, mixing up the content. How much should we be posting? As much of the blogging food groups as you can fit in there in a balanced diet to make your content consumable and not overwhelming, but also not to leave them starving, right? So.
If you Google that, he just recently published that, so you can check that out, right?
Yeah, it's a blog, a big infographic we did. So anyway.
Okay, Satya, so you talked about processes, people, then the technology. So let's say we have all this. So what should companies aim to achieve with social media after we have all those things in place?
Wow.
Yeah.
You thought you had a difficult question.
Again, better you than I.
Well, I'm struggling to figure out where to begin answering because I think the key thing really, I mean, this is going to sound really cliche, but fundamentally it has to ultimately tie back to whatever the objectives are at the business level, right? So whether we're talking about marketing or customer support or increasingly sales, right? So there's a lot of talk now about social selling and lead generation, lead management on social and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, ultimately these objectives that you have or the metrics that you have to measure your success on social should tie into other metrics or objectives that you have at an overall business, line of business level or business unit level. So if you're talking about, for example, the lead generation aspect of it, which is sort of related to the demand gen and the sales teams, essentially what you're going to do there in terms of success is one part on social is one part of what your overall objectives are in terms of conversion rates and M2Ls and whatever it is that the metrics are that you're following. I think the worst thing that these guys can do is essentially what most of the companies are now moving away from is to have a completely disparate set of metrics which the social media guys care about and celebrate with lots of partying when they meet those objectives, but nobody else in the organization cares about that. Because then what happens is these guys become irrelevant. And that's the last thing that should be happening. The social media guys cannot afford to get irrelevant within the eyes of their more business-oriented colleagues. And that's why we always advocate that the metrics that these guys put in ultimately dovetail nicely into whatever else, whether we're serving, as I said, sales, customer support, or marketing organizations.
Thank you. Okay, go back. So what's the
Easy
biggest,
one.
easy one, I'll give you easy one. What's the biggest mistake to avoid? For small to medium startups?
Well, I'm actually really interested because we're sort of talking about small and medium size, we're talking about startups, we're talking about enterprise. How many people here are from an enterprise company? Okay, that's kind of what I expected. How many people are here from what you would consider like a small business, maybe you're even the business owner or, okay? And then the rest of you guys working at a company, sort of medium sized, would you say? Okay, awesome. So the question again is what should they avoid doing? I mean, I think the quick reiteration of sort of just deciding to sign up everywhere and create these you know, it's been sort of said before by other people. So again, credit where credit's due, just like Jason was saying. You know, there's this model of sort of embassies or outposts, and sort of what I call it your home base is your nation, your blog, your website, whatever your sort of owned property is online. You can consider that your nation, your own home country. And that every other place that you decide to be active is essentially owned by somebody else. It's an embassy that you create elsewhere online to have a presence, to interact with the citizens that are active there in whatever shape or form. It's tempting to create embassies every single place, and then eventually they become abandoned buildings where there's nothing active, and instead when people do interact with those embassies, they see that the doors are closed and things are boarded up, and they think that back home everything is also probably inactive as well. So I think that's one thing that should be avoided. I think the other thing is that you really need to emphasize, I mean, I would say 90% of folks in businesses in general, this is what people do, in my opinion, in person. This is what they do when it comes to sales, and this is what they do in social media. They don't listen. They just talk about themselves all the time, and they don't listen. And you would find some amazing things really, really happen if what you do is you ask a couple questions, and then you just don't say anything, or you just put out, you know, every platform nowadays has the ability to cull data from it and put out searches and that sort of thing, and identify people who are talking about things that you might be able to answer or help solve or whatever. But folks are too busy being sort of self-serving. I have a current client, for instance, that does NetSuite and Salesforce consulting. And I won't say who it is, but with, you know, they're a local small business, they're doing quite well and all that, but all of their content is completely self-serving. It uses language that is all about, this is what we do, this is how cool we are. It takes real world, like, terms and keywords and brands all of it to try to be cool. So guess what? Now nobody can find you even if they wanted to, because everything you're saying is in this jargon that is an attempt to be extra cool and to brand it with your own company. But instead what you do is you've now talked over everybody. Instead of talking to, again, it's got to be customer centric. What language do they use? Where are they active? All those sorts of things. And so I would say the two things, again, you know, spreading themselves too thin, and just simply not listening at all. But not listening before engaging.
I want to add on to that. I would say giving up too early, right? Because you're not going to get results overnight. I mean, if for the startups in the room, you got to ask yourself, right? There's two types of startups that I see. There's startups who are so busy. I mean, do you even need social? Because you need to ask yourself, how much more business do you want? How much more business can you handle? Right? If you have a small spreadsheet that says I have this many customers, I want this many more, then you can equate that to your traffic, to your site. Social is the channel that, if you do it correctly, if you have somebody who's guiding your way, can multiply that very quickly. You put a little pay behind that. In fact, there's a great whiteboard Friday thing on Moz.com. I was at the gym the other day watching this. This is how nerdy I am. I was at the gym watching this thing on my phone. And there's this woman, and she's talking about this exact thing. She breaks out this plan. She goes, I go to a startup or I go to a small business. I say, how much more business do you want? Do you want 20% more traffic? Here's the plan to get that. There's no guessing anymore, man. These metrics are there. Between Google Analytics and a little bit of LinkedIn Insights, almost like Facebook Insights, a little Twitter, you know, the analytics are all there. The native advertising, you can do this, man. It's super simple. Again, so ask yourself, how much more business do you want? Put together a quick plan to get there. And if you can't handle it, then you know, I know agencies who get all their referral business. I know social agencies who get all their business referral, and they suck at social. because they're busy doing it for everybody else. They don't have time to do it for themselves. But if they turned on that marketing machine, look out, man, because
I can feel you on
yeah.
that. I mean, I totally can feel you on it.
Well, I think you got the best of both worlds, right? So I think you understand it and you do it well.
But I agree with you in the sense that, you know, like even having time to do it for yourself sometimes, you know, and again, from being a small business owner here in the Valley, thinking about just turning it up a notch and the difference that it would make.
It's dangerous.
It is dangerous. It is dangerous. So anyways.
I just want to repeat what Adam said. I think the worst thing you can be doing is just pushing your own messages out there day in and day out, right? And that's going to just turn off your audience faster than you can realize. And once you've lost them, it's very, very difficult to get them back on, right? So the worst thing, and so we are a very small company, we're a young startup, and we also pace ourselves because we just can't afford to keep, and we are in the social space, so we cannot afford to not participate on social. That would look weird. But at the same time, we try and balance it out because the easiest thing for us to do is to sort of put on these automated things that go out and keep pushing our content every few minutes or every half an hour or whatever the frequency is. But that's a sure way to lose your audience, and that's not something you want to do. So I think what fundamentally is happening is some of the guys who are more used to traditional marketing ways, where there was a broadcast mechanism in place, try to replicate that on social, and that's a great way to fail because if you don't start engaging and trying to first listen, participate, and then publish, that's the sequence in which it should be, not start publishing from day one without understanding what your course or target audience is talking about, participating in their conversations, and then figuring out what fresh content you want to start publishing. That's the way you should be looking at it and not the other way around. Don't start publishing from day one before you really understand what your customers are looking for.
I want to add to that. I think a lot of times people also have this confusion between, like, Jason's talking about content, and essentially, the term folks are using right now is content marketing. Or when you think of social media, you can kind of divvy it up into two different approaches or two different ways of participating. One is you're actually engaging with people, period. There's channels online to have conversations with folks. The other is producing content and putting it out there and publishing it, and then hoping that they consume it and that they share it and so on. Having content and hoping that they consume it and share it and everything like that is not actually engaging with people. It feels good that you're producing something and you're sending it out there, but it's not the same thing as engaging with somebody. It's, hey, I've got a book, here you go, and you hand it off and they walk away. But sitting back and actually listening for a second, having a conversation with them, hearing somebody talk about something, and having a community manager or somebody on board that's actually willing to engage with folks, there's a difference. And I'm not saying one is better than the other per se. I'm just saying that when we talk about social media in general, it's a channel to share media, but it's also a channel to be social with people. And there's different ways to approach that. Maybe if this is related or not in my head, but if you think it's sort of the two sides of the spectrum, there's sort of broadcast on one side and informative and sort of engaging on the other. And having the right balance for your company between those two sides of the spectrum, they're always ever present, they're both useful to you, but having a nice balance. It's very, very similar to how you would act with anybody in face to face. All the same dynamics that you have when you interact with somebody face to face is exactly the same dynamics you get to have potentially in scale. I sort of joke around and say that social media is a machine that helps you travel space and time. Why? Because I can do now the same thing that I do. I have to be here at this time to be basically face to face with you, here at this place, at this time. With social media, I don't. I can be at a completely different place, I can be in a completely different time and still have a conversation with folks in the same fashion across the globe. So engagement and broadcast are two components, or not broadcast, excuse me, but content, the actual media side and the social side are two parts that you need to use even-handedly or balanced.
Yeah, it's funny. It just made me think of something when I first started in social. I literally, my first job, I worked in the music industry for a long time, and I transitioned into tech when it was crumbling in on itself. And I got a job. I think I went in and I said, "Oh, I'm a social media expert." I'm like, I know how to do this stuff. I had some crap people out that road, but somebody believed me, and I got into this company. And I remember, like, on Twitter, I would actually find people who had a problem, and I would go after them and go, "Oh my God, I can help you out, blah blah blah." And it's like, that doesn't work. That's like, I mean, that worked in the beginning of social, right, when social was taking off. But now it's like, now it's transformed. If you do that now, we're like, you know, get away from me. Like, it's insane. What are you tracking me around here, stalking me? We'd have rating 6, just waiting for that keyword to pop in there. There'd be 14 people charging after them saying, I can help you, and it's like overwhelming. Anyway, but now what that's transformed into is you just find those conversations and you write a piece of content that addresses that issue, and then you target it. Like, you hyper-target it precisely. They see it, they'll come to you when they're ready. It's a beautiful thing. It's very, I love it. I had a conversation with the Snuggle Bear the other day on Twitter,
He's still around and on
yeah,
Twitter.
you believe that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, but it was the Snuggle Bear was helping me. It was I'm digging this hole, man. Anyway, yeah, I'm just saying, so no longer do you chase people on social, but you let them come to you by inbound and outbound. I call it inbound plus outbound equals, you know, awesome, because you're doing it the right way.
Great. And Jason, you mentioned, you know, you need a quick plan to get there. Can you give us a quick plan or set
A quick plan to
I
get
have no quick plans.
to get where?
for the social media strategy?
If you need a quick plan, I mean, there's this thing that again, this is all just like, I had a problem. Like, when I first started, I didn't know how to do this stuff, and I just sat there for hours and hours and researched and stole ideas, and you know. Anyway, so I came up with this. What I did was I developed. This is like 2 or 3 years ago. I developed this thing called the Social Media Tactical Plan, and I basically took a Word doc and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this 4 times a day. I need this content. I just wrote this plan out in a Word doc. And then somebody said, hey, why don't you turn that into like a cheat sheet or something? So we took this exact Word doc, give it to a designer, 10 minutes later it comes back, and we put it out on Marketo's blog and said, and it was basically, I just solved my own problem, and I put it out there. Like, we're very transparent about that. And it was, I think it's the second biggest piece of content in Marketo's history. I think it's sitting like 150,000 downloads. It's a B2B product for a company that had 125 people when I started. But it was such a big problem, and we solved it. We didn't overcomplicate things. That's number one. Don't overcomplicate this, man. Serious decisions. If you're an enterprise, have you ever seen that serious decisions presentation? Oh my God, it'll blow your mind. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Now, they're very smart, but they assume that you're up here. So I think most of us are down here. We don't want to overcomplicate things. So just start small and do what makes sense. It's not difficult at all.
Can you add to that, Adam?
Me?
Yes.
So I'm trying to remember what the route.
Plan to get to your social media strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with Jason about not complicating things. You know, interestingly enough, is we're finally starting to see people over the last couple of years put this sort of social media strategy. What is the process to do this? And people have been arguing about how to do it, and have been sort of finally putting it to the test over the last couple of years. And it's pretty straightforward. It's, you know, initially, what the heck are you trying to get out of this? What's your goals? What's your, you know, objectives? And as Satya said, tying those not to sort of, my goal and objective is to get 100 likes on Facebook. Well, that doesn't mean much to the bottom line. So, like, what are those likes going to do for you? So what is social media going to do for you? I don't know if there's an actual blog post for it, but a friend, Jason Falls, who's a thought leader in this space as well, he has a book called, excuse the French, No Bullshit Social Media. And he basically has a block in there, and again, I don't know if he'll have this on a blog post or not, but he says this is what social media can do for you, and he has 5 things. He talks about lead generation, brand visibility, whatever, and he just says that there's these 5 things. So in order to know what you want to do with social media, you got to know what do you want social media to do for you in regards to business, use cases, and then from there, essentially plan to go after that with whatever the action is that you're doing. Measure, review, rinse and repeat, and just continue to sharpen the saw by doing that. You're not going to have success. You may or may not, but you're not going to likely have success immediately. You're going to get better with time. It's the same as, for instance, when folks talk about blogging, and I've had conversations with folks that have a lot of good things up here, and they don't know how to start. It's just like, just shut up and start. That's it, just start. Your first 10, 20, 30 blog posts are gonna suck. But guess what? They're going to be piled on by all kinds of great stuff that happens after you sort of gotten the rhythm, found out how to grab great ideas that are happening from your experiences on a day-to-day basis and that sort of thing. So it really is just decide what you want to get out of this, make a plan that matches what you want to get out of it, implement it, review it, rinse and repeat, review, implement, review, implement. The review is, are you hitting what you're supposed to hit, make some adjustments and everything, and then just continue to move. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Yeah, just one point. I mean, for most of the startup folks out here, chances are that you're probably not a social media guru, right? So you don't know all the magic buttons that need to be pressed on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever channel it is. I think the key thing is really, it is okay, as he said, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. It is okay to not necessarily rush into it head first and start posting and publishing content. It's perfectly fine to sit by the sidelines, initially find out what's happening, what is the nature of the conversations, exactly how, what the pattern of interactions is, and so on and so forth. Then, as I said earlier, start participating in those conversations so that people start recognizing you for the value that you can eventually bring to them, and then start get brave enough to get into whether it's posting on blogs or whether it's tweeting or posting on LinkedIn groups or whatever it is, you can get into that. So all I'm saying is, if you already have the social media chops and know exactly what it is that needs to be done, great. You're wasting your time by sitting here. But if you don't, it's perfectly fine to take your time, learn by observing what others are doing before jumping in. Because I know it. I mean, we ourselves face it every day. You go on Twitter, you go on LinkedIn, you go on Facebook. There are tons of companies all making noise about various things. You tend to naturally feel the pressure to start going out there and sort of getting your presence out there as well. It's better to sometimes just sit back, listen to what's happening, and then figure out what you want to do. And once you get in there, it's perfectly fine, again, to repeat what Adam said, to make mistakes. It's fine, right? There's nothing major that's going to happen, but try and first understand what's happening so that you're better prepared. Because the worst thing you can do is jump in there and immediately panic when something goes wrong. It's going to be a knee-jerk reaction and not going to help your brand or your company.
That's that. Because I'm just thinking, if I could go back to 2009 and delete all my blog posts, I'd be much happier. It was
But
awful.
you can.
It was terrible. No, there was different companies, and some of them aren't even around anymore. And it's just really bad stuff. It's just awful. Embarrassing. They can't even repurpose it. I'm going to repurpose it into nothing. Like, I want to. Can I update that blog post? I'm going to delete it. Yeah.
We're going to start looking tonight on Google for all
I know.
the posts.
Putting all the little Google operator back in 2009.
Is it okay if we take questions?
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions?
Are you seeing in your business people putting less money in Google search, or the spend on Google search is still the same and people are taking money from offline and putting in social media?
I mean, it depends on the business, depends on the company. I mean, people are still searching a lot on Google, right? And so Google search is a very different beast than advertising on LinkedIn or Twitter or something like that. There's a difference between, it's like the yellow pages, people are looking for a solution to an answer that they have, or a question, excuse me, that they have. They search for something that they are looking for. Whereas in a lot of these other platforms, it's not. I mean, that's why you've got folks like Facebook trying to do graph search. If you guys are familiar with that, because they're hoping to find a way to monetize or provide advertising units on something where people are actually searching. They're actively going, I need a solution for this. I need answers to a question. Then you go, great. It's an opportunity, right, to do that. And that's why Google has done so well, because they're providing answers at the right point of opportunity, whereas advertising in other ways is a little bit more about sort of being visible as people are consuming content and making sure that you pay for that extended reach of getting that content in front of a targeted audience. For instance, the sponsored updates that are going on with LinkedIn. LinkedIn to me, and Jason may or may not like this, I think over the last year and a half, I've steadily said I believe that Google Plus and LinkedIn are going to do some really awesome things over the next year and a half, and they have, and LinkedIn is in a really pretty incredible place for businesses of all sizes to be, especially with some stuff that has happened with them recently, including the sponsored update stuff.
Where's the but?
What?
Is there a butt coming?
There's no but at all. There's no but at all. In fact, I mean, they've done two things. One is they've allowed you to do, you can do updates just like you would with your Facebook page directly from LinkedIn. But the big difference is, guess what? People aren't there to be entertained. They're there to actually learn. They're there to network with people professionally. So the sort of mental mode that people are in, it's the same person. When you go to Facebook versus Twitter versus Pinterest versus LinkedIn, the only thing that changes is your mindset of what you're trying to do. So when people go to LinkedIn, they're there for business, and they're there to network, and they're there to learn. And LinkedIn has become one of the best content hubs, essentially, you can find when it comes to wanting to get valuable content. It's not goofy stuff, it's not Grumpy Cat or any of that sort of thing. It's real, honest to goodness content. But now they've upped the game where you can now share content from both your company pages. You can pay to extend the reach of that with targeted stuff, so it's not just sort of shown to everybody in the whole 220 or 270 million folks on LinkedIn. It's only the folks you want. And then lastly, that as an individual, if you are a solo entrepreneur, if you're somebody that wants to get your CEO and expand your thought leadership or whatever that it may be, I agree that the blog is sort of the holy grail home base of what you do. But you now have the opportunity, and it's rolling out on LinkedIn, to blog directly on LinkedIn, just like a lot of the influencers are doing. And that is a different thing than a pay-per-click on Google. I think the strategy is take a look at what's working and not working, and whatever's lowest on the totem pole, take that money and put it into testing out other areas, to see how it works. So if PPC on Google is working, don't touch it, or take a portion of it and test something out. But the data is there, you have metrics on all of this stuff, so test for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then go back and see, is this having an impact, and then that's where you put your money.
Somebody asked me, it's funny, somebody asked me last night, they said, what do you do, how do you spend your time in the morning when you wake up, like on social? And I said, well, I used to go to like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and do it all. But now I just don't have the bandwidth for it anymore. So I was thinking about it this morning. So I woke up this morning and I got on LinkedIn, and the first thing I saw was Yahoo is allowing you to pay with your fingerprint, right? Informing me. Second thing I saw was how to treat SEO as a feature instead of a product, right? A marketing feature instead of a product. So educating me a little bit, right? And then the third thing was something about how to turn your how Oscar magic can inspire your content. So it's inspiring. So I had three things. Then I go to Facebook. And I got, there was a shower head on a daily deal that was on special, shower radio on Living Social, 2 for $24. My friend said he loved the weather today. And the third one was that, the David Byrne from the Talking Heads was covering a Biz Marquee song. So I'm like, how am I going to do that morning, right? So I check in, and then again, I'm a little biased, right? But get in there, it's a personalized real-time newspaper based on who I'm connected with. Get in there, look at that, and I check in with the water cooler, Facebook around noon, maybe like, but I want to get my day started with. I want to know what's going on, and I just don't get that.
I mean, this is sort of self-serving for you, but how many people here have been on LinkedIn for 4 years? How many people here